Hello and welcome back to another episode of World Traveler Cooking. Today we're going to make Swedish cardamom ice cream. Now, I got this recipe, again, off the Eco website, but I've seen similar recipes from a number of different sites. It seems like this is, in fact, well loved, and it doesn't look too hard to make. We'll also talk a little bit about how to make your own ice cream maker. If you don't have one, I do have an ice cream maker, but there's not room in the freezer for it. So we'll talk about how to improvise that. So yeah, at any rate, we will. Our ingredients today are actually pretty simple. I'm going to use 400 milliliters of milk. I'm also going to use 400 milliliters of cream. This will make about a liter of ice cream. So you can think of maybe, 2 cups of each. 8 egg yolks, 150 grams or 300 milliliters of powdered sugar. So half as much powdered sugar as we do with the milk and cream. And then we're going to use, for this much, we're going to use a tablespoon of cardamon kernels, which I will take out of these pods here. So, next thing I'll do is I will get a tablespoon of these out, and then we will boil the milk and the cream together, and we will whip the powdered sugar and the egg yolks together. So, let's get started. So, into our tablespoon of cardamom seeds, let's add 400 milliliters of milk and 400 milliliters of cream. Now we will turn these on to boil together while we process our eggs. Alright, so while our milk is heating up, let's start by whipping our egg yolks a bit. And then we're going to add our powdered sugar, a bit at a time, whip that in. And eventually we want this whole thing to be very, very light and fluffy. And if you've seen from my eggidosis video, in fact it is quite possible, or in the Kogomogo, it's also quite possible to get a relatively light. Let's just add it all in. Just start with stirring it and then I'll beat it. So it is possible to get a relatively fluffy egg and sugar mixture. Now in the US, mostly use icing sugar, which contains a little bit of cornstarch, so that's okay. Here in Indonesia, the powdered sugar is just powdered sugar, which is why it cakes a little bit. So I'm just going to beat this for a few minutes till it's very nice and light and fluffy, and I'll be right back. So this is now boiled, so we're going to whisk these together. We're just going to whisk this pretty vigorously. See how hot it is? That's pretty close. We want it to be pretty hot, but not boiling. So I'm going to scoop out the rest of this and whisk it in. And then we will start to heat this gently while whisking. The goal is 85 Celsius, which is like 185 Fahrenheit. And this should just thicken a little bit, but we're going to beat it in the process. That'll help build some air in here. It actually tastes really nice. So next, I'm going to pour this into a bowl. I'm going to use just a standard bowl from my stand mixer. As I say, the freezer doesn't right now have space for the whole ice cream maker. So I'm actually going to do an improvised ice cream maker in a bit. So this is then going to go into the refrigerator to be chilled. Once it's chilled, we'll start the freezing process. So the next step is I'm just going to put this in a smaller bowl. I'm just going to put this in the freezer, and I'll be back every half an hour to stir it. And once it's starting to get more frozen, I'll stir it some more. If we start to get big ice crystals, I might use the hand blender briefly to break this up. So this is about 40 minutes in. This is the second stirring. And you can see we're starting to get the beginnings of a slurry here. No large ice crystals yet, although there are some lumps. So I am going to just whip this up a little bit with the whisk. And then this will go back into the freezer. I've decided to do 15-minute increments instead of half-an-hour increments. We'll just keep doing this. See you in 15 minutes. So this is the third one. Wow, this is starting to get a lot thicker after just 15 minutes. So, I think maybe the next time I will also use the whisk, but for this time I will not. This will go back in and see another 15 minutes. So this is, I think, the sixth one. You can see it is definitely getting much thicker. And I think we're only going to have maybe like another half an hour to an hour of freezing before this this whisk is no longer going to cut it. So this is a little bit grainy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in just for a straight 30 minutes, and then I'm going to hit it with the hand blender. So that'll hopefully be the last one we do, but let's see. And now for the taste test. Now this is a consistency roughly of soft serve ice cream. The hand blender in fact worked very nicely. The consistency is not very grainy. The flavor is not too much cardamom, but certainly enough. Reminds me very much of, for example, the buns and semler that have just a bit of cardamom in them. This reminds me very much of Swedish desserts to me, just generally. It's delicious. I recommend everyone make it. It's quite something. So if you find this content interesting, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to say about how I've made this dish, please let me know in the comments. At any rate, this shows you how you can make ice cream without an ice cream maker also. At any rate, recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.